Yep.
Gonna wait till we get a crowd since it's a public hearing, or
We got it.
the weather you think kept people away?
The peanut gallery's already here. There he goes, Kelly.
I used to bring like charts that I'd made with showing the
Charts
taxes,
that I made.
big ones. I mean, big posters, and
I just quit doing that.
the people that were here were not interested. So, well, it's 9:30. We'll open the meeting. First item is approval of the agenda.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Minutes of the March 8th, 2022 and March 9th, 2022 board meeting.
Move to approve. Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. This is the time, place, and date set for a public hearing on our 2022, 2023 county budget. I would entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to open the hearing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Do we have any written
No.
comments? Are there any verbal comments?
Just one, when you guys were putting together your budget this year, did anything stand out in good or bad about any of the funding this year, any of the departments or anything like that, or is it more kind of business as usual, so to speak?
Oh, no, not with the county. It's never business as usual, and it's always all good. And I'll give you a quick explanation here. It might spur some more questions. What we've done here in this year's budget, we will be levying about, well, a little over $750,000 less property taxes. Our rate for the total county rate will go down 72 cents per thousand. And the for the part that's actually in town, I guess you'd say, it's going down $1.04. Now, how were we able to do this? We were able to do this mainly because the state took over funding for mental health. So that prohibited us from levying that amount. And so what we did was we were able to take about half of that money and use it for departments, for improvements in the departments. And one thing that sheriff can probably address, one of the difficulties there has been, vehicles. They wear out. If we showed that, it would show a tax increase. In this case, it didn't show a tax increase because we had a reduction from the mental health funds. So we're able to get on a good schedule now where we can have 3, 3, 3. And some of those things that we've wanted to do for quite a while, but it was difficult to do because it would have been substantial tax increases. But we found an opportunity here where that didn't happen. We're able to do it and still offer a sizable tax decrease. It's not uncommon to have the levy rate go down, but you still pay more property taxes because the valuation goes up. So if you're taking it's a formula. You take the rate times the value, this is what you get. If the value goes up and the rate goes down some, that sounds good. But when you take it times a higher value, you pay more in taxes. Not the case here. It's an actual $751,921 tax decrease.
Cause I noticed, like the secondary roads budget for next year is up by about, a little over $1 million. Is that just normal, replacement stuff of bridges and culverts and stuff like that? Or is that something you kind of anticipated,
Well, it's up because it fluctuates. Next year, it may be down. It depends on when we're starting and completing projects. And that, the property tax money going into secondary roads, it stays pretty consistent. This is road use funds or sales tax dollars. If you look at, like one, the sheriff's budget, it was able to go up 338,000. On normal years, it had been hard to do that because it would have been sizable tax increases. But this time we took advantage of the reduction in mental health funding, and we passed that on to departments and to the taxpayers.
right?
So it's kind of a split. Half went to the departments and half went to the taxpayers. In all of this, and again, you need to kind of understand the way the process works. In all of this, we could have lowered taxes more by using our carryover balances. But then that puts you in really a hairy situation, because if during the year, because we do the budgets really a year and a half ahead of time. We're doing it 6 months before it starts, and the end of it's a year from then. So you can't anticipate everything, but to maintain your carryover balance allows you to correct those things that might come up mid-year. Things you need to buy, personnel costs, things like that. And so we've maintained our carryover balances. We didn't have to deplete any except one. That's a good one, debt service. When you pass a bond issue, there's a requirement that, like your first year, you don't make a payment, but you got to levy for it. The next year you levy and make a payment. So you've always got 1 year that set aside in case you had a tornado or something that wiped out the town and no way to collect taxes. You actually have a payment to give to the bank. Well, when you get to the end, and we're at the end of next year will be our final bond payment. Wapello County will be debt free. So what Kelly did was able to take that year that we've been holding back, and she will make the next year's payment out of that. So we don't have to levy for it. Now, our debt service will show that we still have about a $47,000 payment, but that's not ours. That was when they built a tower for communications, and it's paid for by the 911 board. They can't pass a bond issue, but they can make payments on it. So we pass the bond issue for them, and they reimburse us for those payments. So even though it will show a scheduled payment of just under 50,000, we don't have to pay it. The 911 board gives us the money to make the payment. But next year, Wapello County will make its final debt service payment.
So what will that do then? Does that kind of correlate with then the property taxes if you're debt free, there's really no debt service levy, right?
Right.
So would that further decrease because you don't have to levy for that? Or is that just
The decrease is this time,
Okay.
because we took that first year payment or first year levy that we were saving each year. And then instead of levying for it, we're taking that payment from what we already had levied for. So that starts this year, even though our payment is next year.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean we'll never have bond debt. What it does is when we pay one off, it gives us an opportunity to look at another major project that we can get involved with instead of, well, you might have seen that, you cover the city council, don't you? Like they have 7 or 8 bond issues at a time. You're allowed to go to, I believe, 90 or 95% of what your total capacity is, and they're probably at 80% of the maximum they can levy, where we have the whole thing. So if we face a big emergency, we're in good shape for it.
Right. I know, I think last year you guys lowered property taxes as well, if I
Yeah.
remember right. How many years in a row have you guys been able to lower property taxes as far as the county goes?
Well, I can look back on 3 years here, and in that was just 2
It's
years.
been every year that I've been on, hasn't it?
You can see it's been almost every year, or it's pretty much stayed the same.
It really hasn't risen at all.
And that's a credit to our department heads. Because what happens if they're given $1 million budget and they don't spend it, it goes back into our balances. So then the next year, instead of levying that amount of taxes that the department heads gave back, we'll go into our balances, which were sufficient when they started. Now we've added money to it. We're going to be able to use that money instead of levying taxes. So if you watch your balances, there are times you need it for emergencies, but there's also times when you need it to stop a tax increase. So when we have those good carryover balances, we have done calculations to what you need for the first 90 days of your budget, because you don't have any tax money to operate on. You're operating out of your balances. So if you had no balance and you have to borrow money to actually operate the county for 90 days, we keep a little over the 90 days. So we don't have to borrow money to operate the county. And all of it really ends up being just one big circle. You know, if you keep your fiscal house in order, everything else will fall into place. An emergency comes up, you can take care of it. If you have a year where you expect some sizable tax increases, you can take care of it by taking it out of your balances. So if you protect those balances, you're really protecting the whole county. It creates opportunities others wouldn't have. And we try, when we do a budget, not to do it just for this next year. We want to look ahead to see, okay, what's going to happen. And here's an example of why that's important. The rollback, the backfill that the state, when they, you know what that is? When the state said, like on our residential property, we don't pay taxes on the full value, we pay it on the taxable value, about 50% of what it's worth. If you owned a business, you're paying taxes on 100%. And the legislature said that's not right, so let's reduce that to 95%. Then let's reduce it to 90%. So if you own a business, you're only paying 90% of the value for property taxes. Well, the county was getting about $250,000. We lost that much in taxable valuation. So the state said, no, we're going to reimburse you for that. Well, I'm always hesitant when the state says, hey, we're going to do a good thing. And they did for a while, but now they have a schedule to do away with it. But what Kelly had done, instead of budgeting the whole 260,000, she was budgeting less because each year was the fear of them taking it away. So we would budget less, part of it would go in our balance. Next year, now it's going to be a few years before, according to the state's calculations of what they're going to reduce our allotment each year, it'll be 3 or 4 years, maybe 5 years before we get down to what we're saving. So thinking ahead makes it easier to budget. You just, had we not, and those counties that didn't, and cities, they're just boom, in a short period of time, they're going to lose $260,000 in revenue. Did I miss anything?
I wasn't listening. I'm just kidding.
I'll
I
make
hope
a motion to close the public hearing.
I think I better go through it again. She said she wasn't listening. I don't have it written down, so I can't do it. It'd be different. Did you second it?
Yes.
We got a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Resolution number 18, 2022, adopt fiscal year 22-23 budget.
Move the resolution. Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. And there are some little things that we're able to do that probably don't. Well, I saw with county conservation here, I wanted to point out there was an employee who had a discrepancy in his pay. We've been able to correct that. And also you had part-time clerk. It's the clerk, because of the extra things that they're doing out there now, we're able to make that person full-time. So it's those kind of things that the public probably doesn't see, but the departments are well aware of those little things that they add up when you look at all the departments we have. But that was since he was here, that reminded me of that. Resolution number 16, 2022, secondary roads quarterly transfer.
Move to approve. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Wapello County Conservation Board recommendation to fill vacancy on the board. They had the applicants gave their applications to the Conservation Board. They interviewed all of them except one who withdrew. They interviewed those, and this is the recommendation that they've made. So the recommendation is John Henscheid.
Move to approve. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Approved land sale by county conservation. This is not a park or anything like that. This is a really thin sliver of land that is in a water gap. And one farmer continually was having us go over and fix that gap because his cattle would get out. Well, it's between him and another farmer, so there's no reason for us to have it. So they offered it for sale. One of the farmers has purchased it, and that's what we're approving. So it's just a sliver of land along a water gap.
And
Do
this,
you have anything else?
this negates anything against the county on this land from now till the end of time.
The only thing that was attached to the title was the fact that it couldn't be sold to land. And so that will transfer with the deed while we're with the county attorney on this transfer. We opened it up for public comment, advertised it in the paper, legal notice for 30 days. Got a few questions, but every time that we even had the daughter show up in the meeting, we explained to her what was going on. She understood. And then after that 30-day of public comment period, we state code on that, then we put up for bid for 30 days. They never had a bid on it. These two landowners both bid. And then they had sealed bids until board meeting when they opened it, and they give the bid to the highest bidder. And that just has to go through you guys too, to make sure it's okay before we can do the transfer and accept the payment and all that stuff through the county attorney. But we saw nothing in the deed that fell back on us because we had it broken out, already surveyed out and everything, we paid for a survey on it.
I think my question becomes, once we transfer this, whoever bought it, it's their land, it's their responsibility, nothing can come back on us that was unknown or that, okay, perfect, I approve, or, make the motion.
Yeah, second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Memorandum of Understanding with Teamsters Local 238. If you remember, a week or two ago, we did a memorandum of understanding with the courthouse unit and with the secondary roads unit. And this is the same thing, except it's just with the other union.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Kevin Hatfield, Pekin Superintendent, SOR Officer.
Yes, sir. May I come up for a little bit here?
Yes. Does Dave Idol still work for you?
Sure does. Fascinating, wonderful man. Great job.
Well, 50 years ago, him and I was taking our kids and neighborhood kids and kids around the counties to track meets. And we did that for many years. And his boy that was running with my boy ended up being like superintendent of schools here for a while.
Yeah, no, he's up at Solon.
Yeah.
Yeah, I chat with him every now and then. And yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to be in front of you. Can I share a document with you?
Sure.
And I'm really grateful Don's here. I know Bart, Mr. Richmond from the sheriff in Jefferson County wanted to be here, but he couldn't be here today. So this is just a draft document that what I shared with the Jefferson County Board of Supervisors. So it doesn't really pertain directly to you guys, but maybe in a sense. So let me just share a couple of thoughts. I'll try to be brief. Kevin Hampton, I'm the superintendent in Pekin, and I'm sheriff of Sigurd. One of the topics that's come up for our school district, especially in Pekin, has been the notion of bringing on a school resource officer to be in our schools for some determined amount of time. Why? For one, for Pekin, I think it's more vital is because most of you probably know our location. So when we go get an emergency call that be of very serious nature, we might have a 10, 15, 20-minute wait time before we see someone. Hopefully not. That could happen. So that's kind of been when I arrived. I remember meeting with crisis management reviews, and then we had Mr. Richland, the sheriff of Jefferson County, come in and meet with our team as well about reviews. About that time, the topic started coming up again. He actually had a parent reach out to me, a couple of parents. Obviously, you know, the unfortunate had in Fairfield, so you can picture all this stuff coming together. I was in the West Branch Community School District superintendent for 7 years. And one of the things that I was fortunate enough to do is work with the city there. And we had an officer who was already trained as SRO. And we actually utilized them. That person's still in place after 7 years. So that's kind of my backdrop on it. And I've really appreciated the work that an SRO can do in a school. And it's not just from a safety perspective, but also, which is critical, but also from, they have training in terms of curriculum, they have guidance teams, they can meet with student success teams, things like that. And they have great connections. The other piece is they know the school inside and out. So in this case, there's different types of shared agreements that are out there. In this case, it's not one that I'm proposing for Jefferson County Board of Supervisors. I've shared twice with them. It's not where I want this person. I think there's some agreements where it's actually like they become part of the school employee. In this case, it's not. And what this case is about, what my proposal is to them is, could we get an officer who's they already have one trained, who's been SRO trained, and could we get an officer in our district that would give us 15, 16 hours a week, maybe average that, and then kind of adjust their times when they come. So if you don't mind, I'll use this document that I just handed to you, just a quick overview. Okay, I'll just go quickly. And again, I really want to thank Don and Casey and Bart, the sheriffs that are surrounding our school district that would from different counties. They came in and met with me, and we just kind of started chatting about some of these topics. So anyhow, so this agreement, you can, the first couple paragraphs, there's nothing big there. If you go down to where like Article 1 would be, obviously we want to really build up a safe learning environment for our students. And then slip to the very bottom of the page, we have an SR officer ready to go. That's a Jefferson County Sheriff who's been trained. And so that kind of states the qualifications pieces of it. And then there's some supervision things on the second page. And then the assignment piece to me is really important. And that's on about the middle of the second page. The SRO will be assigned to the school as a part-time basis commencing on the first day of the school year and terminating on the last day of the school year. The hours of their employment, I put this as temporary as 15 hours a week for us in Pekin. So it's a minimum of 2 days per, she could, in this case, female officer who's been trained 2 to 3 days, depending on her schedule. And they would just remain under the, the auspices of the sheriff's department, even though they'd be in our schools during that time. I believe your county, Wapello, has a sharing agreement with Cardinal. And so you're familiar with some of this. So I'm probably just telling you things you already know, but just wanted to give you an outline of ours. It goes on a little bit later to talk about, duties and responsibilities, provide a safe environment for us, issue ordinances and things that they fall under their jurisdiction. All of that basically is saying there's FERPA law, which is student records laws that have to protect it, and SRO officers in the school district are still obligated to protect student records and things like that. So there's some access, but not access unless it's for an educational need or purpose. But yes, sir. And then, again, I'm going quickly here. I apologize, but kind of flipping over to, like the third page there, and I'll get to the crux of why I'm here, is article like 4 says the employment status of the school resource officer. In this particular agreement with Jefferson County, I wanted to state clearly that they're still under the control of the sheriff's department. So no matter what the SR officers in our building, they can on a dime be out and going to go do what they need to be helping our communities. And then it goes on to show that. And then at the very bottom, I guess this is why I'm really here for all of you, is the financing of it. I've spoken with my board, I've spoken with Bart, I've spoken with Don, I've had different combinations of things. Originally, some of my board, I'll be very honest, some of the school board keeping, and rightly so, was very like, wow, would we pick up half the cost of a sheriff's, a deputy's salary and benefits and things like that? And that wasn't really what I was wanting to do. And so we kind of built to this particular notion right here. So it says, the district, and that would be the Pekin Community School District, and this is all a draft, by the way, agrees to pay the county the amount of, and it'll be determined by 2023 school year. Example, and I put it in there, like 15 hours a week. Mark shared some numbers with me, about $32 a week, so $480 a week for us, times say 40 weeks of schooling. And so essentially what I've shared is we would not exceed, and I've shared this with Mr. Richland, Sheriff Jefferson, we would not exceed $20,000. Now, where that ties in, the reason I'm here is I didn't know this for sure, but one of the suggestions I had, and I believe this came out of Don's meeting with us, is what are the percentage of students who actually come from the Wapello district and attend our school? And it's 78 as of a week or two ago, it's 78 students. And that's about 12% of the students in our school.
Now, do they live in the district, or are they ones that just open enroll there?
Some are, they're OE in, or they actually live technically in this boundary area of the school district. And we, of course, as you know, a section of our districts, if you look at the counties, they connect, right? There's certain boundaries. So it's a combination of both.
The reason I was asking is we have the assessor,
Yes.
and the assessor's he operates under a board, and that board is the county supervisors, the mayors, and the school districts in Wapello County. And we've never had a Pekin representative there. And back in the beginning, they had told me that that was because we had no students living in Wapello County that attended in that part that attended Pekin. So if they do, we probably ought to get a representative from Pekin to be on our comp board.
Yeah, I would think so. You do have, I had her double check professional there, Ann Swanson, she double checked and said the other 78 students who technically live in the Atumwa school district or in that boundary and actually attend our schools.
Is there a way you can get the students that are separated between actually living in the district and then those students that are open enrolled?
Yeah, we can probably verify like which one they're open enrolled in. So we can definitely do that.
So I mean, the open enrolled, like, let's just say, and I know it's not the case that all 78 are open enrolled, then necessarily would they be on the comp board? But I
I don't
guess
think so. I think it's live in the district
Yeah, they're in
and,
the district, I think.
yeah.
And the reason I brought that to you is, we were kind of looking at Keokuk County, how many students actually attend the Pekin in the Pekin City School District attend our building, and that's a higher percentage. And then, of course, Jefferson County and even like Washington County, we have a mix of students in those. So I guess the reason why I'm here is if I thought of that in terms of, my board saying, kind of Mr. After we're actually behind this to some degree if you can put the financing piece together. So I'm really here kind of humbly asking if we would put an agreement together, and this agreement with all of you, provided that, county attorney, everybody reviewed it all, and our board attorney would maybe state, instead of some kind of factoring of dollars like I've showed in this one, it may be saying, hey, they do have a percentage of students that attend that school. Maybe the county be willing to go at maybe even 10% of that would be about $2,000. This would help me as a school district offset some costs for having the SOR, also providing services to all students. And I would actually go to Keokuk County and ask the same thought, just to see if that would be helpful to us. I do believe this is a great benefit to our schools and our services for all students. We just happen to be unique in having those 4 counties that kind of feed our district.
I think all those are options. And I haven't talked to Don, or we haven't talked about it, of course, but I think everything you said is an option. Even the county, that's a small participation from Wapello County. We'd want to get the sheriff's opinion on how he would put it together, the manpower, when, those kind of things.
I don't, there's no, they're not requesting manpower from our office. I think they're just looking for a fiscal assistance in the thing. So there'd be no
Jefferson
manpower
County officer.
from our sheriff's office.
I think they wanted us to help pay for the Jefferson County officer that they're gonna have to go there.
And it's kind of the same deal that Cardinal has worked out with Jefferson County. They have 11% of the students at Cardinal that come from Jefferson County, and their board of supervisors, my understanding of it is pays $5,000 each year. And that's what I explained to Mr. Hatfield, that maybe if we figure out the percentage of students from Wapello County that attend Pekin and come up with a percentage, that I think that's a fair way to look at it. But I said ultimately it's your guys' decision as to what you want to do. I think anytime you collaborate and work together on something, I think it's just a better deal for everyone.
I think we need to answer Brian's question about how many of those actually live.
Yeah, we'll
And-
verify that with you. I'll either share it with Don or share and pass it on to you guys. I'll verify all of it with you.
Okay.
Yeah, and the really important part that he's talking about is this is obviously Jefferson County Sheriff Department official who's been trained. So we're just looking for the services, and then it was brought to my attention, wow, there's kids from various ways. So, I hope you find it to be a reasonable thought, and I appreciate Don's explanation there, and also you guys' consideration. No action necessary, except other than just share it with you unless you have additional questions.
I think the key thing is we want to find out how many live in that district that are in Wapello County.
We will do that, and I will get that and verify it back with all of you, double check our numbers and everything. And again, I'm hoping I can do this for really, ideally, it'd be if we could have like a 3-year agreement, so I could actually get Jefferson County, so they know they're paid for 3 years, and bring it to my board in April. That would be ideal. It's up to you guys, but I certainly would love to be able to bring that to the board and say, hey, Yeah, we have actually had a decrease in enrollment over the last 7, 8 years, and so we're also very sensitive about funding. And so I know you guys are too. I heard your presentation at the start of this today, so.
Yeah, if you can get that to us and then maybe we could have it on even the agenda in the next week or two to see what we want to do with it.
Okay, and again, that's just a draft, and maybe the other piece of this would be is you may want to have, here I have a Jefferson one, maybe I've just updated this and shared this with you guys, so you have kind of agreement, maybe of course the funding would be a different piece down the bottom.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys, appreciate the opportunity to be here. Ready to sign in? I'll probably take it.
The next item is personnel to request for payroll approval for a new hire, a clerk 2 at motor vehicle.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion is second. All in favor, say aye.
Right.
Opposed, say no. Under any other business, treasurer investment report, February of 2022.
Move to accept and file.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Right.
Opposed, say no. Also, under this, you know what a consultation is. The city asked that the county be involved in a consultation yesterday. I went over, and in the past, the board has directed me to give a response to them. What it is they have some property out by Coles that an individual wants to build a building on, and the city wants to give him, basically, it's 8 years of free property taxes for building there. They would pay their property taxes, and these are approximate figures, 56,000 the first year, and they would return that to him. Second year, he would pay 56,000, and they would return that to the developer. For the next 6 years, they would only return 80% to the developer. However, when the 8 years is over, then there would be a lump sum payment. Those 20% there and give it to him. So it's 8 years of free taxes. We don't have anything to say about it, but they're required to hold a consultation with all the taxing authorities. We were the only one represented, but we've always in the past given them a letter. And the reason I bring it up instead of putting it on the agenda, it was yesterday, and you have to have the response to them in 7 days. So if you want me to do as in the past.
Would that be a new TIF district in that little area right there?
No, it's
It's already
already in the Wildwood TIF. It's not increasing any land.
Is there, and I know the answer to this, is there a sunset on that TIF?
I don't know.
No,
Isn't it though, the Wildwood, it only includes the parcels for Coles, doesn't it?
well, yesterday, and I have those papers I can give to you, but they said it did not increase the territory any.
Maybe it's owned by.
Because Coles owned
Okay.
it, and they sold it to this guy. So I had mentioned also to Zach from the city, are you getting nervous about all the property taxes that you're giving away? And the answer was yes, he's concerned. Because if you look at the motel at Bridgeview, no taxes for 20 years. The housing development out north, 10 years of free taxes. Coles, I think it was 20 years. And now this year will be 8 years. You cannot make it by putting the burden on the existing taxpayers. If you don't get new development and taxes from them, you just can't make it. So there's a concern about this. For the hearing is April the 5th. So the board can make a decision before then if they want me to go object to it, or do we just want to send them a letter asking that they really, really study every TIF? Because what happens in with the county, we lose those tax dollars, and 20% of this is money that would be coming to Buffalo County. The schools would lose also, but schools, when there's a TIF, they're allowed to tax to overcome that TIF, but we can't. That's not, hasn't been an option for us.
Well, I think a new building, we don't necessarily lose it, but I think it does get into the aspect of exactly what we talked about with it. I believe there's good uses of TIF. And I think then it starts getting just overblown. And I think that's where you get into the free property taxes and all these things. I don't necessarily object to the TIF. I object to the 8 years, the same as I didn't object to the TIF at Coles, but I object to the 20 years on that. TIF does help with development. But I think in the letter, just, I guess stating as a whole is exactly what you just said. I wish the city leaders would start looking at the bottom line going forward. And some of these TIFs, I'd love to see some type of sunset date on them. I mean, you put, like, let's just say this, let's say this, or use Bonita. So 10 years, that's in TIF. They don't have to sunset that at all, right? I mean, is urban development, is there a sunset
Yeah,
on that?
there could be another development out there.
Right, that they could go on. Now, blight, there's no sunset at all on that. So I think it gets into one of those, sooner or later, you have to start taking care of your general fund. Again, I think there's good uses for TIF. I don't think in some instances, I don't think it's bad if you're helping with some infrastructure work or things like that. But you have to start putting something back into your general fund at some point in time. So that's my only message to them on it, is just start looking at some of this stuff that where in 5 or 10 years down the road that we're not getting screwed over because everything's going into TIF. And I don't know what percentage they're looking at TIF in that. It'd have to be all of it, right?
Yeah,
100%
on
that area.
area right there.
So
Because he said the property taxes were 56,000 a year,
and that's all
they
going
estimate,
back.
and
So
it's all going back.
Yep.
Now, there's still services that the city's gonna have to provide, and the county. So I will write them a letter to that effect. And something else, and I pointed out to you that we've got, starting July 1st, our employees are paying $100 a month towards their health insurance. And the situation is where we have a man and a wife both working for the county. Do we want to allow them? And I'm not looking for an answer right now, but you can give me one so we can develop a policy on it. That, do we want to say, okay, only one of you has to be on the county insurance? I've done some research to see what happens if there's two and the one who's covered passes away or quits. Our insurance carrier says they're covered till the first of the month anyway. And then they could get on county insurance. If that's what you.
I'm fine with just one of them being on, but I think you brought up the kind of the double insurance and the possibility of money that could save if both of them was paying that extra 100
Yeah,
on there.
I
to where
wasn't
the other
aware.
insurance kicks in. What's that?
Maybe just do 50-50 for those people that have a family policy where you have two people.
And that's the kind of answer I need. I don't know what.
When they're still just paying $100 for the family.
Right.
And the other thing to think about is we have comp time in our handbook. It's not in the union contract, but it's up to the department head. And like in Kelly's, she doesn't use comp time. She pays them the overtime. In some of the others, they allow them to accumulate comp time and take the time off. In the handbook, I think the figure is way too high. It's like 6 weeks of comp time, but you have to use it in 1 year. So that would be almost impossible to accumulate and to use it. So the question is roads. The elected officials make that decision, but at roads, he's under the supervisors. He hasn't been allowing them to use comp time. And the union has asked that some of the winters where they have a lot of snow days, they would just soon have some days off instead of the pay. So it's something we need to give them an answer on. That's all I have.
The only reason I switched from comp time to just paying them overtime was because with our election cycle, you know, we have like June and then November, and that's where we get a lot of our overtime in, is depending on their anniversary date, they don't have enough time to use it before it expires, or you have nobody there. So it's just easier for me, and I just budget, you know, $5,000 extra for overtime, and then we can bill that back to the school districts or the cities or whatever who's holding the election. Just makes it cleaner for me. So that's the only reason I changed.
And you may want to consider in the handbook, it says like 240
240 hours. is the
240
max, yeah.
hours. We may want to consider reducing that because I've got a couple changes in the handbook coming up. Something for you to think about and give me an answer on. Anything else to come before the board? Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. We are adjourned.